and he's going to house it.
It's amazing. Absolutely amazing.
What's going on, everybody, and welcome to another Angle of Pursuit podcast, your fantasy football, sports betting, and NASCAR home. I am your host, Kyle Robert. You follow me on Twitter at NotoriousKRO. With me after our 2-week hiatus, it's Brian Twining. What's up, Brian?
What's up, Kyle? Yeah, I'm excited to be back this week. Sorry for missing last weekend. For everyone to know, I was absolutely sweating the last couple of laps as my absolute nemesis of the season, Joey Logano, crushed my hopes of one of my outrights of Kyle Busch. It was an incredible race, especially the last couple laps. I was really excited to see the way that finished. And then, I'm excited to get into this Sonoma race this week, being the second road course of the season. Practice and qualifying were extremely interesting. The starting grid is something you would only see on a video game. It's going to be a great race tomorrow.
Yeah, sorry for the delay, everybody. Your boy was down bad. I was real sick, but I'm back. And Brian and I are back. 2 weeks ago, I was all over the Ross Chastain, and that last couple laps where he was there and then got knocked out and had his whole thing with Denny Hamlin, and that was brutal. That was brutal. So that sucked. But that's okay. We're back. We're here to talk, as Brian mentioned, the second road course of the season. Obviously, the first one being the Circuit of Americas, where we saw the new cars. Our guy Ross Chastain got the win there. I guess before we dive into everything, Brian, how much are you using previous experience on this track versus what we've seen with the new cars on Circuit of America? Because I feel like the new cars are a little bit of a game changer, obviously knowing the lines, and we can talk about, Ross and Alex Bowman and Kyle Busch all running the truck race tonight, just to get another refresher on the lines and on the track. But are you leaning a little more on the new car? Are you leaning a little more on experience on the track and knowing the lines? Where's your head at for this race?
So just kind of seeing the way that the new car has kind of changed the game on the ovals. We saw it at Circuit of the Americas. Like Ross Chastain was tremendous there, and he had never really performed at that kind of level at a road course before. So it was interesting to see that. I think for me, if I was going to put a percentage on it, it's kind of like 60-40 leaning towards historical data at this particular track, because Sonoma is quite different than COTA. There's a lot of uphills and just some weird embankments and stuff. So I definitely take more on what drivers have done here in the past, but you can't avoid what the new car has done to some of these drivers, and you can't glaze over somebody who has performed well here before, but is absolutely struggling in the new package. So, that's going to play a huge role tomorrow during the race.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting mix for sure. Also, it is interesting that they tweaked the course a little bit for this year. It's set up just a little different. So obviously being comfortable with Sonoma and just the way the track runs, but even with the new setup with the tires, they were having some issues early in qualifying because of the other race that was on the track running different kinds of tires. It made it a little slick. Chase Briscoe was super comfortable in his car, almost too comfortable, and was pushing it to the limits, and had a couple issues in practice and in qualifying. But interesting to see how these guys all pan out. So yeah, we'll jump into it. We'll do what we always do: build some DraftKings lineups, make some bets, look at the odds post qualifying, and then and see if we can't find some winners, Brian. So let's go to DraftKings and let's run through some of the pricing. You see that okay?
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. Kyle Larson, Chase Elliott are your favorites. 10-6, 10-4, starting first and second. Makes a lot of sense. Kyle Busch, your winner of the truck race, 10-1. And then old Martin Truex, he did not like his car. He was very upset. He said he was really, it was mad how slow it was. Obviously, got a little bit better as qualifying went along, but did not qualify well at all, starting 28th. I guess let's do Larson or Elliott. Which one do you like better? And then and then if you have thoughts on Busch or Truex.
I mean, obviously, of those two guys, I would probably lean Larson as opposed to Elliott. But I mean, you're really splitting hairs between those two if you're looking at the top of the board. I mean, they're starting on the front row. It's going to be one of those things where one of those two guys is probably ahead, the first few laps prior to the first cycle of pits.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you're kind of flipping a coin. But for me, I'd probably go Kyle Larson. I just think he's been a little bit more successful in rebounding during races too. And so, yeah, I mean, flip a coin, it's going to be preference on those two guys.
Yeah, for sure. And I kind of like Larson looked great, obviously. And had, he kind of slid out, using the out, beyond the limits of the track, and was still able to put down the fastest laps. That makes me think that if he can kind of avoid the, back wheels kind of coming out from under him, he can even put down a faster time. But Chase is really good on road courses. Obviously, these two guys go back and forth constantly. I wouldn't blame anybody who used a combination of the two guys, maybe one with Larson, one similar lineup with Elliott, maybe even get crazy and try and put both of them in. It's interesting because obviously there's not as many laps, so you won't have as many chances at dominator. So it will be an interesting spot. Kyle Busch, as we mentioned, won the truck race, looked great. Could easily win this race from the 12th hole. And then Truex didn't like his car, but man, I loved him coming into this race. Obviously, a road course warrior, has had some great success in Sonoma. So I feel like he will be incredibly popular, and with good reason. As we dip into the 9K range, this is where the names get really fun. We have our favorites: Ross Chastain, 9,800, starting 7th; Danny Hamlin, 9,600, starting 10th, and then 14th, Ryan Blaney, William Byron at 9,200, your nemesis, Joey Logano at 9K. In the 9K range, where are you at with these guys? Anybody that you're looking to make sure you get in lineups?
I really feel like Hamlin and Blaney are going to have a really good day there. I mean, they were okay practicing qualifying, but like William Byron starting 20th, I think that's a great opportunity to get plenty of placement points, because we've seen it in multiple occasions this year, regardless of track type, where certain drivers, they're able to make a small adjustment to their car post practice or qualifying and come out on race day and just look like a completely different driver on the track. And I think Byron's team is one of those kinds of teams that can pull that kind of turnaround. So I think him in that starting position is probably my favorite.
Yeah, I like Byron quite a bit. Starting 20th, I think he can be really competitive in this race, maybe even win it. Has done better. Like, obviously his results on road courses haven't been great over the history, but actually ran really well at the Circuit of Americas. And I think this new car, combined with his skill, combined with his evolution, is just kind of making him more excuse me, making him more compelling at road courses. So I think he makes a lot of sense. We dive down even deeper. Christopher Bell, starting 31st, 8,900, I think is going to be another guy that's incredibly popular. Had some car issues, had to go to the back. Allmendinger, starting 16th. I like him quite a bit. Looked good in qualifying and just got bounced. The aforementioned Chase Briscoe, starting 15th, 8,700. Tyler Reddick. Austin Cindric, 25th, I think could be in compelling too. He seemed kind of like a buzzy name coming into the race. And then Kurt Busch and Kevin Harvick, the olds, rounding out the 8K range. What names jump out to you in this range?
I think the first one has got to be Kurt Busch. I know that's probably a surprise when you have all that young talent there, but when you look at like past success at Sonoma, Kurt Busch actually has the best average finish here. He on a consistent basis is finishing inside the top 10, like 4 of the last 5 inside the top 10, each of the last 5 inside the top 13. And his worst finish over the last 10 trips to Sonoma is actually 13th. I mean, when looking at consistency at this road track, Kurt Busch is the model, and the 8,200 starting 11th. He only needs a couple of placement points. He's been on fire the last few races. I mean, running inside the top 5 in each of the last 2 on a routine basis. So I think he's by far my favorite of this group.
Yeah, I like him a lot, and I think he can legitimately win the race. But would I like him to be starting 17th or 18th? Sure.
Yeah, exactly.
Few more chances to move up, but I like him quite a bit. Like I said, I like Cindric a lot. Starting 25th, I think he could make some sense. Has performed pretty well. And I always like Dinger. Dinger starting 16th, another guy who is a road course specialist. Hasn't ran Sonoma in 4 years, but was able to put down a lot of laps today. So I think he's going to be more comfortable heading in to tomorrow and still has a legit chance at winning the race. So makes sense. Dive into the 7K range. We'll start with Alex Bowman, 7,900, starting 19th. Looked really good in the trucks until he had some issues towards the end of the race. He had probably not a chance to really win. He was 4th most of the race, battling with Ross Chastain for kind of second, third area. Kyle Busch had that dominant for the most part. Suarez also ran in the race. He ended up taking over for forget the guy's name, but he got injured last week in St. Louis. So Suarez got to put down a bunch of laps too, and actually made a really nice performance despite switching drivers mid race and taking about 2 minutes to switch into the car, and was still able to, I believe, pulled out a top 10 or so. So I think he is really interesting, even though he is starting 8th. Looked really comfortable, really good. Eric Jones, 7,500, starting 33rd. I think a lot of people are going to get there. He's much better on road courses than I think people realize, but starting 33rd, 7,500, I think he could make some noise, be really interesting. Almirola, McDowell looked really good, but I don't know that I'm touching him starting 4th.
Absolutely not.
Ditto for Cole Custer at 7K. Any of these names jumping out to you besides maybe Eric Jones?
I was just going to say Eric Jones is the first one. I mean, starting 33rd, the guy has finished 11th or better in the last 3 Sonoma events he's raced at in the Cup Series. And then the other one for me, he's got to be the top of the board there in that under 8K range. Got to be Alex Bowman starting 19th.
Yeah.
I mean, this guy is always running inside the top 10 or thereabouts at these road course events. He's been really solid there. He's actually been way better than what people actually realize on track all season. I mean, he's always at or inside the top 10, starting 19th at 7,900. He's basically starting right with William Byron. And although I say I like Byron starting 20th, like I'd actually prefer to save the salary and take Bowman starting in a spot ahead of him. Like that's, to me, that's so much more value than a guy like Byron.
Yeah, it's a lot easier to get into your lineup for sure. And you could just double up the Hendrick guys and try and get them both in. I think that could work too. But I think those 2 names, and then Suarez is kind of a sneaky name that I kind of like. It starts to get kind of gross as you dive down below 7K. I will say Bubba didn't look terrible. I know he's had some bumps and bruises on the road course, but has had a bunch of time on the simulator learning the track again. So that made me think good. Obviously, Chris Buescher looked great in practice. Good for him. I'm not touching him there. We have Joey Hand on board this week. Kind of a ringer for road courses. But yeah, it's kind of a gross area down here.
I was just going to say, that's a pretty gruesome list of guys.
Yeah, I'm sure there will be a name or two that are really compelling here. And I can try and dig and pull something out, but I don't feel good about any of those. So, if you want to get real aggressive and go Elliott Larson and put one of those guys in, I think it could make some sense. But there's so many values around the board that I don't think I'll have to get there, but we'll see.
Yeah.
With that being said, Brian, let's build a lineup and see if we can put some winners into our DraftKings lineup this week.
Let's do it.
I'll give you the keys and the team, and you can put whoever you want in our lineup.
All right. Man. It's just one of those things. Like the JGR drivers have really started to hit their stride. If you follow me on Twitter, you saw Kyle Busch was my guy last week on an outright early on in the week. I loved him heading into the race on Sunday. If it wasn't for that SOB, Joey Logano, Kyle Busch is taking home the cake and I'm winning again. So Let's start Kyle Busch starting 12th, took home the truck race.
Like it.
Possibly get those placement points and some laps led here.
I'm putting Christopher Bell in because, you have to. I think he makes a ton of sense. He may be popular, but I'm okay with that.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. All right, let's see here. Oh man. I'm going to do it. We're going to be the Busch team this week. Let's go Kurt in there. He's been too strong at this track to avoid. And that 2311 team that he's driving for right now is on fire. So I cannot avoid him.
Yeah, he's looked really good. He's having a nice little Kevin Harvick-esque resurgence. So hopefully we can get it together for a few more weeks and then feel pretty good about where he's at. Man, this is going to be an interesting spot. I'm going to go with my guy. I think he can finish top 3, maybe even win the race. AJ Allmendinger, 8,800.
The ringer.
Starting 16th. I think he makes a ton of sense. We are sitting at 7K for the final 2 spots. As we mentioned, it's kind of a gross range, but we can find a name or two to squeeze in.
Yeah, this is a tough, but let's see.
So I think the names that make sense are Bubba Wallace. I don't hate Austin Dillon, although he is starting 13th. I don't love that.
Honestly, let's go down the board. He's the 4th cheapest guy. Corey LaJoie starting 30th. He has a pretty decent finish here on his resume. Finished 18th last year. I think there's a good possibility that if he avoids trouble, he can finish near the top 20, which would be a tremendous mark at that 5,300 cost.
Yep. I think that makes a ton of sense. And then there's 3 names for me. They all could easily be rotated in. It's Austin Cindric, 8,400. It's Alex Bowman, 7,900. And it's Eric Jones starting 33rd at 7,500. I think Jones is the grossest. And I think because we're using names like Christopher Bell and AJ Allmendinger, I think going a little gross, grabbing Eric Jones, leaving a little salary on the table is the move. Once again, I think Bowman could make sense. I think Cindric could make sense. If you don't love Dinger and you could go with one of those guys, I think that would also make a ton of sense. But I think this is a good way to build our lineup and have a nice little mix for mixing drivers in and out of a 1 or 2 spots.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Cool. That's our lineup. I'll enter it in some contests tomorrow and we can recap it next week when we get back to the track. Let's talk betting because that's what we love to do here. And let's look at some odds now that qualifying is in the books and some of the numbers that we're looking at. So Chase Elliott is now plus 380, plus 400, some 450 if you can get to FanDuel. Him and Larson are your favorites. They're both right there. It is interesting to see Elliott just slightly ahead of Larson at most books, despite Larson, qualifying on the pole. But Elliott had a tremendous run here, so both those guys are compelling options. Wouldn't blame anybody for betting them, but I think both of us are happy to keep it moving and avoid those numbers.
Definitely. That is far too short for me, especially in the year of firsts and with the next gen car. You have to expect the unexpected at these races. I mean, Coda was a prime example of that, seeing Ross Chastain basically dominate the field, which was completely unexpected. So I cannot find a reason to go to that short a number going into a race that we really don't know what we're going to see, that especially that they've changed the track slightly.
Yep. Speaking of Ross Chastain, 10-1, pretty much across the board. Looked strong in the truck race tonight. Obviously, didn't have enough juice to get to the end and win the race, but looked really good, really comfortable. Obviously, hit one at Circuit of America. Next gen car, road course. I think this guy makes a ton of sense. I wouldn't blame anybody for getting there. Followed by Kyle Busch. You can actually get him at 12-1 at DraftKings. So if you have access to that, I think that's a fantastic number. Otherwise, it's going to be about the same number as Ross Chastain. Allmendinger is the other name that's kind of right here. We can talk about anybody that's in this range. I think Denny Hamlin makes sense. I've already bet Dinger at 12-1. Being able to get him at 16 or 17 feels like a nice bargain. But what names in this range are jumping out to you?
It's got to be the Kyle Busch. If you could get him at 12-1 at DraftKings, I feel like you can't pass that up. And then for me, I got to go Tyler Reddick, 17-1. I mean, the guy has got to win a race eventually. Like, something has got to go right for him soon, right? Like, he just continues to run into issues. And I really think that Reddick, his time is coming, and you do not want to miss the boat when it's there.
Yeah. And his number, man, he despite not winning, he's been in kind of that 15 to 20 range almost every week. And it feels like a guy that has won more than he has, but it makes a lot of sense. The Hamlin number, the Martin Truex, I got down at 9-1. He's obviously starting way back, so now 18-1. Hard to get to. We talked about this guy when we were talking DFS, but Kurt Busch, 22-1 over at BetMGM. I think that's the number I might have to get in on. I lose you?
Yeah, I'm back.
Okay.
Yeah, no. When you go further down the board, like the Kurt Busch at 22-1, that's ridiculous. If that's even still, if you're able to grab that number, I feel like just throwing like a
even
small
20. Like I can look
small
right
shekel
here
on that is a great
value.
I mean,
DraftKings still has it at 20.
Well, and when you look at that board right there, Cindric, Logano, Kurt Busch, all very successful drivers. Cindric in the lower divisions, but at road courses, those guys are great.
Yeah.
And Penske, for one, has been really good of late. And I do think that they're kind of undervaluing them heading into Sunday because of practice and qualifying, which again, like how much is that actually going to determine what happens on Sunday? If you've watched this season, it really does nothing.
Right. And like the fact that you can still get 20 or 22 when there's 12 and 15s out there is pretty wild to me. Obviously, FanDuel and PointsBet are getting maybe a little more money there, so that makes sense. William Byron, 32, like that's a number. Like I know he hasn't been the road warrior, but I think his time is coming. Obviously, he's been dominant this year, and I think could really make a dent this week. And at 32-1, I think could make some sense.
Yeah, and then it's laughable that somebody's starting third. I mean, if I'm completely wrong and say practice and qualifying was a good indicator of how well guys are going to drive, getting the person starting the race third at 55-1 at Chris Buescher would be an absolute steal. So, I mean, even putting a 1/10 of a unit on that is something that is probably a good bet at this point, because you're getting value at somebody starting near the front.
Yeah. Especially when there is 35s out there. It is an interesting number. I think in terms of outrights, that's really all we need to be looking at. I think we dive any farther, we're gonna be just kind of burning money. Let's look at some positions, because I think there's interesting numbers here. We'll start over on DraftKings. There's not a lot of top 10 markets out unless they've posted recently. Nope.
So you have to go to our one of our favorite offshore.
Yeah, we'll go 3s and 5s, and then we'll look offshore if we can find anything sneaky. Daniel Suarez being up here, man, that's wild. You get Daniel Suarez top 3 is 3-1. Denny Hamlin to top 3 is 4-1. It's just interesting. Any of these numbers jumping out to you? Anything you really like here? Kurt Busch.
For a road course, like as much as I like Tyler Reddick, getting him a top 5 at plus 175, like that's a number I could see myself getting to.
Yep.
Ross the Boss plus 125 and Kyle Busch both getting that number to top 5 at a track that they should both do extremely well at is something that you could probably hammer. Like at road courses, you would probably expect the favorites, these numbers, to be more and indicative of what you would be like guaranteeing somebody to top 10 at an oval would be.
Yep. I like those calls. I like Dinger. I have a little hesitancy just because of what happened last time and being basically in second, but because he's not going for the overall championship, he gets a little too aggressive, gets spun out. All of a sudden he's finishing, in the middle of the pack, and you're just ripping up your tickets as they're catching on fire. Cindric and Truex are two guys that I wouldn't mind looking more on, like the top 10 market. I think top 5 is might be a bridge too far especially for Truex where he's starting, but don't hate it. Like we said, Kurt Busch's number plus 250 makes a lot of sense. William Byron plus 350 is on the card. I'm in on him this week. I think he looked fine enough in practice. I think he will be strong tomorrow, or I guess today.
Especially in the Hendrick car, like he definitely has the speed and just the team to move throughout the field to get there.
Yep. So I think he makes sense, and having Alex Bowman there, I think the two of them could kind of carve through the field together. Like Alex Bowman 5-1 to top 5, I think makes a lot of sense.
Again, when looking at a value, that's
right. Let's look at driver props. I think that's where our best potential numbers potentially could be. Like I like Kurt Busch here, but man, Alex Bowman at plus 110. Busch is so rock solid though, so hard to fade him there. Daniel Suarez being a favorite over Logano, I think is kind of funny.
Well, what's interesting about that is look at their odds. Suarez 12-1, Logano 20-1.
Yeah. Yep. So if you like Logano, that's a decent.
That's a great number.
That's pretty good. That's what it should be. There was one we were talking about. Some of these head-to-heads have moved, and depending on where you look, can find some real value. This is the one we talked about. We're gonna do a show bet again this week. You already have Austin Cindric on the card.
Yes.
I like AJ Allmendinger. I know the juice is off, but I will go head to head on that against you. I think Dinger is the pick, and if I can just do a little head to head, I think I'm in board with that.
All right, I like that. I'll add another unit to my.
Yeah, and you could take that plus 110. That's fine. I'll take the minus 130 and go to the bank. Man, Christopher Bell looked pretty solid until if he didn't have to start so far back, I would like this a lot more.
So, well, that's interesting you say that because I really like Christopher Bell this week. I think no matter what happened, practice qualifying, he's got to move to the rear, whatever. So for me, getting Bell at plus money to go over Chase Briscoe, who, yes, Briscoe is kind of a road course savant, but I can't help but love what I've been seeing out of Christopher Bell of late. I mean, you're talking 5 straight top 10s, guys like top 10 in 7 of his last 8 races heading into this weekend. He's been really good at road courses, been good everywhere. He's another guy too, kind of like Tyler Reddick, where the win is coming soon. So I'm going to continue to kind of bet on him and hope that I hit it on that same week.
Yeah, I'm still waiting for the Ryan Blaney win that actually counts for the NASCAR Cup and not just the All-Star race.
Maybe there's a sign there that like, I mean, unfortunately, it's already been added, but maybe we can't bet him and he's going to wind up winning.
Ross Chastain plus 152 over Chase Elliott. How do we feel about that? Feels like a decent number.
That's a value bet. I mean, sometimes we talk about this. You're going to bet the number and kind of disregard the drivers. I mean, if you're going to tell me you're going to give me Ross Chastain at over 1.5 to 1 to beat any driver in the field, I'm going to say yes. That's a great bet.
Yeah, I'm going to add that. I'm going to add that because I think it makes sense, as you mentioned. I think those guys are a lot closer than I think. I think the two drivers are a lot closer than that number indicates, and I will. And anytime I can go with my guy Chastain, even if it is against Chase Elliott, I will happily do it.
Yeah, and especially too, I feel like that number is more built on how good Elliott and like Larson, for instance, were on road courses last year during the Gen 6 car. But this new vehicle has completely changed the game. Chastain has probably been the best and most consistent when he's not crashing into people in the new car. So to get those kind of odds for somebody who's been so good in the car is too good to pass.
Yep, agreed. Man, yeah.
So kind of on the same token as you pass by it, like getting Denny Hamlin at even money to go over Ross Chastain.
Yep.
I know we both like Chastain at plus 156 over Chase Elliott. That's a number bet. And that's the same thing. Like those guys are very similar in talent and how well they've been of late. So anytime you get a driver matchup where you're getting plus money or better is a good bet.
Yep.
I mean,
agreed. Bell over Briscoe is interesting. Pardon me. Yeah, I think, unfortunately we don't have any top 10 markets to look at. I might look at adding a few in the morning, but we're recording this on Saturday, so we can get this out early to you guys on Sunday morning, so you can get your bets in, get your DK lineup set prior to the race. Okay, Brian, we talked some betting. We talked betting, we talked DraftKings, we got some thoughts out there, found some values. I think there's one thing and one thing only left to do. What is your best bet for the Toyota Save Mart 350 at Sonoma?
All right, he was one of my favorite guys heading into the week, and I still love him. He qualified inside the top 10, maybe not at the number that I wanted to see him, but Tyler Reddick to top 5 at plus 175 is just that is just too damn good. Give me that all day at a road course. The win is coming for this guy eventually. You see it on my card right there. I got him at 16 to 1 for a half a unit. Give me Reddick top 5 plus 175. I'm doing that for a full 3 units this week.
Woo! Spicy.
Let's go.
Yeah, so there's 2 bets I need to add, and as we talked about on the DFS side, it's the Busch. We're going Kyle Busch, top 5, at plus 125 or 3 units, and then I'm going to also add Kurt Busch, top 5. I think it was 250. I'll just do units. So this is my best bet. He looked really good today.
Can't hate on that.
There's an interesting head-to-head at floating around with him and Logano. I'm fine if you want to go Logano if you get it at a good price. But I do think Kyle Busch has a good race this week. Obviously, he looked really good in the truck race. Dominated it from the jump. I expect him to run really well again tomorrow, be in the conversation for the win, and really have a chance. And then, yeah, Kurt Busch top 5. I think both Busch brothers in head-to-heads, if you find good numbers. I don't really want to bet a minus 200 on him, but if you can find some good numbers, I think they're worthwhile. And I also like Dinger a lot. If you can find some good head-to-heads or some maybe like a top 10, maybe even top 5 on him, I'm happy to do that.
Yeah, I mean, the Dinger is the ringer on road courses. So
yep, even if he was in conversation to win last time and completely blow it. So Brian, it was good to get back. Good to talk some NASCAR.
Yes.
Obviously, we will be locked in watching the Toyota Save Mart 350, hopefully cashing some tickets. Let us know down in the comments who you're targeting this week. We'll obviously tweet out at Notorious Caro, at Greasy Rules 14 if we add anything. Once again, thanks for everybody who is still hanging around. We are cruising to 500 subs. We really like to get there before the NASCAR playoff. We do have our Christopher Bell giveaway that will be happening once we hit that. So please subscribe. Thanks again for understanding that with the patience. That's Brian Twining. I'm Kyle Robert. Enjoy the race, and we'll talk to you guys next time.